Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 174. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on this episode and this channel where all we do is talk and discuss new movies. New movies might come out in theaters. Sometimes we'll watch them on streaming. But either way, on this podcast, we break it up into two parts. First half, we talk all about non-spoilers, summary of the movie, some pros and cons. And then the second half, we dive in a little bit deeper, spoil some stuff, maybe our favorite scenes or performances, and then we wrap it all up by deciding, is this film timeless after watching it once? Is it something that I would want to check out in the future or maybe even own on physical media? Everybody's going to have their own opinions. So if you want to voice your opinions on the Timeless Movie Podcast, a couple of ways you can do that. On any one of the prior episodes of movies that I've recorded, go check those out because we have a comments area on YouTube and on Spotify. Drop down your thoughts. I had a great conversation with somebody talking about No Other Choice. So again, if you have any opinions and thoughts and feelings towards a movie that you really enjoyed, well, drop it down in the comments. If you want to send me an email, you can actually reach out to me. We have an email here for the podcast. It is timelessmoviepod@gmail.com. Reach out to me. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, questions, reviews, and recommendations on any new movies that you guys have checked out, or maybe even classic timeless movies that I haven't seen. I would love to hear those as well. That way I can talk about them on the podcast. Speaking of prior movies that we have seen or discussed and reviewed, episode 173 of the Timeless Movie Podcast is available on platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Go give it a listen because on that episode, I talked all about the film that stars Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, and it is called The Rip. It is a Netflix film, so if you have a subscription, you can go check this out right now. Drop a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. I had a fun time with this crime thriller. I enjoyed the chemistry of Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, but did I think it was timeless? Well, you're going to have to listen to that episode to find out that answer. All right, let's go ahead now and segue into this movie that we're talking about for episode 174, in which we are talking about this new sci-fi thriller, and it is called Mercy. Mercy is essentially involving AI. Just by the trailer that I saw, it just introduced a cool concept, and I think the concept and the hook of the movie is what really motivated me to want to check this movie out. It also stars Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson, and so I really enjoy both of the different actors' work. So that's really, again, some of the prime reasoning as to why I wanted to check it out. Anything sci-fi also, I always want to give it a shot because sometimes they'll introduce new concepts, new ideas, and I always like when films in that kind of sci-fi space try to introduce something that we haven't seen in our real life. So always want to give those films a shot. This film, Mercy, is directed by Timur Bekmambetov. If you have not heard of this director, he's actually been making films for over 30 years. Couple of highlights that he's made. He's made a film called Wanted, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and a remake to Ben-Hur. Now, in this film, Mercy, he's got a cast that not only includes Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson, but we also have a couple of actors like Annabelle Wallis, Kylie Rogers, you have Kenneth Choi, Callie Race, Chris Sullivan, and Jeff Pierre. Now, what is Mercy about? I mentioned that it's kind of like a sci-fi thriller film. Well, let me give you the hook. This is what really got me into the theaters to want to check this movie out. Essentially, you are dropped into this futuristic world, not so far in the future. I think it's pointing to like 2029, 2030 range, but we are introduced to Chris Raven, who is played by Chris Pratt. He is a detective in Los Angeles, and he supports this new Mercy Court that is introduced. What is the Mercy Court? Well, this is a court system that does not use judges or human individuals for a jury. Rather, it uses artificial intelligence. AI is the judge, jury, and executioner. What could go wrong, right? So in this film, you basically get introduced to Chris Raven, but he's in Mercy Court. He doesn't know why. And then he gets told by Judge Maddox, who is the artificial intelligence judge played by Rebecca Ferguson, he gets told that he has committed a crime. The crime is he has murdered his wife. And now Chris Raven has 90 minutes of Mercy Court to be able to prove his innocence and prove why he did not kill his wife. That is entire setup of the film, the movie itself, that's the hook. And that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil anything else. Now that I got to check it out on opening night, what did I think? What were my overall thoughts? I thought this movie wasn't too bad. I wasn't expecting it to be anything spectacular or great, and it wasn't that, but it did have its moments where it was very interesting. It is a detective case in a way. It's mystery because you're trying to figure out, well, our main character is Chris Raven. Did he really commit this crime? Did he really take out his wife? Or is it a setup? Did somebody else play a part in this whole mystery that you're seeing? And so, you know me, I love watching a movie and trying to figure out the puzzle, figure out what the heck is going on, who could the culprit really be. And that's what this movie tries to do with the inclusion of AI and technology. So, again, to me, as I'm watching the movie, you're just trying to pick up different types of details. And what's so cool is that because there is AI involved, you're seeing recreated animation of the crime scene. You're seeing body cam footage. You're seeing footage from around Los Angeles in order to try to pick up the pieces and figure out, well, did Chris Raven do it? Did he commit this crime of passion? Did he really want to get rid of his wife? And why doesn't he remember? So, again, I think that the mystery element is really what kind of got to me and what made it interesting. It doesn't land, in a lot of different areas. I know we'll talk about that in the cons, but overall, again, it wasn't a bad movie. It was enjoyable. I had a good time, an okay time watching it. There also is like a message about AI and humans and how we all make mistakes, no matter if you have all the knowledge possible. There always are those gray areas. So I don't know, that kind of connected with me. More importantly, though, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons. That way we can talk a little bit more details about this movie without spoiling it. Okay, I have two pros about Mercy. Let's jump into the first one. First pro is I actually liked the design of the Mercy Court itself and how it used digital and kind of like a VR type of an experience. So just to kind of describe this to you, you have Chris Raven, who is played by Chris Pratt. He is pretty much for the first two acts of this film, I would say maybe even part of the third act, he is in one room. He is in a completely abandoned room, and all he has is screens and digital aspects around him. He is locked to that chair. He's secured. He can't escape, and he's just got 90 minutes to prove why he didn't commit that crime. But I liked all the different types of digital aspects, like whenever he needed to pull up files. He actually has in Mercy Court access to any type of database or mainframe that he needs to prove his innocence. And he also has access to any camera within the city of Los Angeles. So whenever cameras would be pulled up, or when he needed to make a phone call, or when he needed to look up records for his wife's job, all of that would just kind of come up very seamlessly. And I don't know, to me, that was like a nice little touch. I like the digital aspect of it, very futuristic. And those are the kind of sci-fi things that I'm kind of looking for of, okay, what's something that we haven't seen before? Oh, okay, this Mercy Court, this room, digitizes every single thing, all files, all cameras. And again, I mentioned this a little bit before. It even recreates a type of crime scene that happened in Chris's situation. So all that kind of digital aspect to it of Judge Maddox bringing up all these files and making it very seamless for Chris Raven to use at his advantage. I really dug that. Again, just very simple, not something crazy. Just liked how everything was just digital and all of it was in that room, and it had that kind of virtual reality experience because sometimes there would be trucks passing by or something would blow up and it would happen in the room, but it wasn't real. It was all digital. So I like that little touch. Second and last pro for me of Mercy was I actually thought it was fitting that the majority of the filming of this movie was through the perspective of a camera that just wasn't like a normal camera that you would see in a film. Like a lot of the footage was body cam from police officers or detectives, Ring doorbells. You had street cameras, like from a street light, cameras there. So a lot of the footage you were following, when it wasn't focusing on Chris Raven in the Mercy room, it was from a different perspective, And I don't know, it gave this kind of authentic feel like, okay, he's using every possible camera angle, every possible advantage to point out, okay, I couldn't have committed this crime. Let's take a look at this body cam, or let's take a look at this, security camera from behind my house just to prove, did somebody go in the night of the crime or the day of the crime? So all of those different types of touches I thought was really fascinating, and it made it feel very unique. And also what was so crazy is that it was so jarring that by the third act of the film, when you have Chris Raven finally not have to use any of the technology within that Mercy Court and it became a real movie, it was really interesting how it kind of just changed my perspective because I was so used to looking at it through a different camera lens. Like, again, a camera that maybe didn't have good quality. And then you're seeing it from an actual film camera and you're like, oh crap, yeah, I forgot that this is, we're not just stuck in a room. We're actually going about these different types of courts and places in Los Angeles. So very interesting little touch. Again, I think it's just the way that the film was juxtaposed with using so many different types of cameras, whether it was a laptop, body cam, a doorbell, and then finally kind of showing that difference when it doesn't rely on those anymore. It was just, again, a very interesting switch up, but I kind of like that touch. All right, that's all the positives I have. I do have a couple negatives. So let's jump into the first con, which is really the biggest detriment to this movie in Mercy is that I couldn't really connect with the characters. And more importantly, I couldn't connect emotionally with Chris Raven. And that's a big problem because for the first half and really the entire film, it's all about Chris Raven. But for the first couple of acts, you're just seeing him converse with Judge Maddox, which is played by Rebecca Ferguson. You're just seeing them two in a room talking back and forth about this case, about the evidence, about how he's trying to prove his innocence. But I just never felt anything for Chris Raven. Like I didn't feel bad for him in a way, even though it is messed up that he was, accused of murdering his wife. I would think that, oh, okay, no, I would hate to be in this position, but I just never felt like I was in his shoes. And so I don't know if the film could have done something differently at the beginning to kind of give you a little bit more, or maybe ramp you up to showing you who Chris Raven was. That way, maybe it gives me a little bit more to hold on to when it comes to trying to be on his side. But I don't know, I just didn't feel that connection, so it kind of sucked. Second con that I have about this is that the ending of the movie, although I did understand it, I did get how they were trying to just the whole meaning of what the whole purpose of this Mercy Court was. But there was like another like extra twist at the end that I just kind of felt like it made the movie a little bit too convoluted. Like I get like, okay, yeah, let's have another shocking twist. But if you're going to have another twist like that, I feel like there has to be a thread that's introduced earlier on in the movie so that it doesn't come just out of left field. That's what it felt like to me. Maybe it's because I didn't pick up something. Maybe they showed a scene earlier in the first or second act that introduced this thread, but I never caught it. So it just felt like something extra that wasn't needed. But that's just a personal opinion on my side. Let me know if you've checked out the movie, if you agree or disagree with some of the pros and cons that I brought up. Okay, moving into the next segment, which we are going to be talking about, which is, should you guys check this movie out? I'm going to say, in my personal opinion, even though, again, it wasn't a terrible experience, I'm going to say that this might not be like an immediate watch in theaters. If you do want to watch this one, I would say maybe give it a shot in streaming. Again, it's not oh, you have to check this movie out. There's just something that's so cool, and the concept of it. Again, the hook, I think, will get a lot of people at least to want to watch what's going on or what happens. But I would say that this is more of like a streaming movie that you can check out in a couple of months, not something that you have to go run to the theaters and watch as of today. All right, that's all I got from a non-spoiler perspective for the film Mercy. Let's now transition over into the spoiler section. That way we can dive in a little bit deeper, talk a little bit about what happened in this movie, and more importantly, answer the question, is this film timeless? Is it something that I'm going to rewatch? So before we go into that section, I want to give you guys a little bit of a chance to jump out of the podcast now because we're going to spoil some stuff about this movie, Mercy. So again, if you don't want to be spoiled, please jump out of the podcast, watch the movie, and then feel free, come back, listen to the podcast, and listen to this section, and let me know if you agree or disagree with my decision on it being timeless. All right, I think I gave everyone enough of a break in order to jump out. let's go into some spoilers. Let's talk a little bit about what happens in this movie. I've only watched it once, so this is just going to be coming off the dome from memory, and I'm pretty sure I'll miss some details. But just to give you the gist of what happens in this film, this will kind of help me really just clarify whether I consider it timeless or not. I set up the conversation about this movie that you have Chris Raven, who has been accused of murdering his wife. He has 90 minutes in order to try to figure out, well, who did it? Did I really do it? Now, he doesn't remember this event because he actually ended up getting drunk after an argument with his wife. And after he left the house, that's actually when the murder occurred. And so that's kind of like one of the details that I didn't mention in the summary is that he actually has no recollection of what happens after he argued with his wife. And so that's why he's confused as to, well, did I do it? He almost starts kind of questioning himself, like, I know that I was having trouble with my wife and our relationship was going downhill, but did I actually commit this crime? And so as you're going through the story, he uncovers a couple of evidence. He then figures out that it was not him who murdered his wife, it was somebody else. But he couldn't pinpoint who until he found out that through, recollections of events that they had at their house, they had a barbecue the day before. And what did he find out? He found out that his own Alcohol Anonymous sponsor, Rob Nelson, played by Chris Sullivan, he, at first seems like he's his friend, he's his biggest supporter, but then we find out that he actually didn't leave with his truck after the barbecue that they had. Instead, he stayed hidden in their basement. And now he's figuring out, well, why the hell would my sponsor, why would Rob want to do this to my wife? And we end up finding out that the whole purpose of this was because the first case in Mercy Court was Rob's own brother. Rob's brother was he was a homeless man. He lived in a red zone. A red zone in the film Mercy is just like considered a zone where you just have a bunch of people that don't have a home, don't have jobs, and so they're kind of secluded there so that they don't commit any crimes in Los Angeles. And so essentially, Rob's brother was accused of murdering somebody, and he was the first court case in Mercy, and he got executed. And because of that, Rob set up on a vengeance to be able to take out Chris Raven, because who was the detective that, accused him or brought him in and wanted Mercy Court to be a bigger component in Los Angeles? It was Chris Raven. And so Rob wanted to take it out on the person that he sponsors. And so he set up a whole plan. He murdered his wife, and made it seem like it was Chris Raven who did it. That way he could get put into Mercy Court and then he can get basically taken out. But Rob wanted to take it even further. Rob wanted to then go to Mercy Court and blow it up with some explosives that he has been using, or components and materials that he's been getting from his job. And so that's really what kind of takes place in the film Mercy. So again, Chris Raven did not actually commit the crime. He did have trouble with his wife, but it was actually Rob. And again, Rob wanted to get revenge for his brother. He wants to just destroy and blow up everything that Mercy is consisting of, and also kill Chris Raven because he blames him. So that's essentially what happens. There's an extra twist that also kind of comes into play with the partner of Chris Raven, Detective Jack, who was played by Callie Rice. Again, this is the extra twist that I just didn't really feel was needed. We find out that she ended up framing Rob's brother. So again, this just gets so convoluted, so I'm not going to go too much into the details of it. But those are the kind of the elements that kind of make it where, was it actually an enjoyable experience? Again, that extra twist, I didn't really need it personally, but that's how the story goes. So Chris did not murder his wife. He was able to prove his innocence. And then he ends the movie with saying, humans make mistakes. AI also makes mistakes. What we have to do is just learn from those mistakes and get better and do better. And so that's kind of like how the movie ends. But again, that's from my memory, what I remember of the movie. The real question is, do I think Mercy is timeless? In my personal opinion, I do not think this film is timeless, and I don't think I'll plan to rewatch it. Again, it has components that I did enjoy. Again, I like the idea and the hook of a court that gives you all the evidence, all of the available cameras to prove your alibi, prove did you actually commit a crime. I like that kind of an idea, but I just, again, overall, there was no connectiveness to the Chris Raven character. I was talking to my brother about this, and I kind of feel like, I don't know, Chris Pratt is a good actor, a great actor, but something about how they set up this movie, it just didn't give me any feeling of like, yeah, I should really want to root for him. I don't want to be in this position like how he is. So I kind of feel like they maybe should have done something at the beginning. Like instead of just jumping right into the court case, we could have maybe gotten a little bit about Chris's life, like what he was doing, how his marriage was, how his life was with his daughter. And so there's things that I think they could have set up just to make it feel like, okay, is he really a good guy? Can I really trust him? I mean, it sets me up for him being a good father or somewhat of a good husband. But I don't know. There's that connective tissue from that I was hoping to feel as an audience member that I just didn't get from this movie. And it just kind of never proceeded to make me or convince me that, yeah, I should be rooting for Chris Raven. I was hoping that he could prove his innocence, but it was never from that feeling of, yes, like he did it. It was just like, okay, yeah, well, I had a feeling that it wasn't him. But that's just me. That's my personal opinion, guys. More importantly, I want to hear from all of you. What did you think of Mercy? Did you get a chance to watch it? Did you enjoy the experience? Did you feel that emotional connectiveness to Chris Raven? Also, did you think this film was timeless? I want to know. Reach out to me. Drop a comment on this podcast or reach out to me at the timelessmoviepod@gmail.com email. I would love to hear you guys' full thoughts. One of the things that I actually forgot to say was, but this is so unrealistic, there was a scene where you have a semi-truck go through a specific freeway to get to downtown LA. First thing I thought of was, there's no way this is real. You know why? Because if this was a true representation of Los Angeles, there would be a bunch of traffic. I don't care that it's in 2029, 2030. I still think there's going to be a lot of traffic. And so there was a scene where the semi-truck would just go like almost 60, 70 miles an hour, racing through a bunch of different cars on a very well-known freeway. No, there's no way. That is not believable. So not a con, just something I noticed about the movie Mercy. But anyway, those are my full thoughts on the film Mercy. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to my opinions and my thoughts and my discussion about this film. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 174 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next episode because we're going to be talking about the return of Sam Raimi because he has a film coming out called Send Help. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to y'all later.